Hey everyone, this is David Pike, the MotorCity mechanic. In today's video, I want to give you some quick tips on what to pay attention to if you ever had to remove and replace the spark plugs, or if you've got a problem with one of the coils on a Chrysler 3.2 and 3.6 liter Pentastar engine. Now when it comes to maintenance on the Pentastar line of engines, which again I'm going to say over and over, it's a 3.2 and a 3.6 liter, there's not a lot of routine maintenance. Now there's some issues that pop up. We know about the thermostats, we know about the rocker arms, we know about the oil filter housings, but as far as maintenance, really all you have on a regular basis is the oil change, which could be 3,000 to 5,000 or even more depending on how often you like to change your oil. Now, once you reach 100,000 miles, well, things change. There's really two things in the owner's manual that they recommend doing, and I'm going to throw a third one in there. The first one being the PCV valve. Now, the PCV valve, I highly recommend going with the Mopar. For some reason, the aftermarkets, I always seem to have oil coming out of the PCV valve and getting into the hose, going to the air filter. I don't know why. Maybe just a bad batch of them, but nonetheless, I've gone back to using just the OEM. They cost more, yes, but unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in. If we want a good quality part, we've got to pay for it. The second thing is spark plugs. So your basic tune-up on any modern day car is really just replacing spark plugs. Now, with a 100,000 mile interval, that's usually because the plugs are better quality, and one reason is the intake has to be removed to get to them. So they're not easily accessible, so that interval is kind of drawn out from what used to be 30,000 to 100,000. Now with that in mind, if you have to remove the coils to do the spark plugs, I want you to pay attention to a third item I recommend, and that is the coil boots. Now it's not often for a coil to go bad. Now, when I visit my local parts stores, I'll see like 6 coils laid out on the counter ready to be delivered to a shop, and I kind of shake my head. With the Chrysler stuff, that's really not common. You can have a failure, yes, but the majority of the time it's going to be with the boot. It's either going to be saturated in oil, kind of like what this one is. At that point it's super flexible, and that's because we had a leak up here on the valve cover where the tube seals are. And the other issue you have is it actually get a burnt hole. It looked like a white dot. And at that point, the voltage is escaping out the side of the boot and firing on the tube next to the spark plug. And that's causing a misfire. Kind of like your old school broken down plug wire when you're under a load going up a hill. If you feel that kind of a jerk, more than likely that cylinder that's setting a code has a burnt hole in the coil. So my recommendation, along with the PCV valve and the spark plugs, is coil boots, and they're easy to replace and they're not very expensive. Now here is a set of coil boots that I use on just about every job that I do that hits that 100,000 mile mark. Now this one is from O'Reilly's. I'm sure other parts stores carry either something similar or maybe a different brand, but nonetheless, you can either buy them individually or as a set of 6. Now cost-wise, if you get them as a kit, you're in the $40 range. Now that's less than buying a coil, and like I said, typically the coil is not what goes bad. The rubber breaks down, and then we get voltage jumping through the boot to the tube, so we got to skip or misfire. Now inside, if you open it up, you've got just what you would expect. You've got your coil boot, and you got the little spring or the electrical portion that makes contact with the spark plug and the coil. Now when it comes to removing the coil boot, there's really nothing too major to it. There's just a few important steps I want you to pay attention to. Mainly is when we're removing it, we don't want to damage the tower portion that actually comes off the coil, kind of like this one over here. This one has had a rough life. That was replaced obviously because of some damage. That can happen if you're not paying attention when you're removing the boot. Now also when you're removing it, there's a piece inside that may fall out, so kind of watch how you're holding it. You're going to grab one end with your hand right here. The other one you're going to grab the boot. And you're going to kind of rotate at the same time as you're trying to twist it off. Again, kind of keep it upright because this piece right here wants to fall out. So we don't want to lose that. If you're going back with it, make sure you see it still in there. If not, it's somewhere on the floor, or if you can't find it, you're buying a coil anyway. Now we're going to grab our new boot with our new spring, and we're going to insert it into the tube. Now, how far do you put it in? Well, I'm going to let the coil decide that. So what I do is I let it stick out some. I put the spring portion up in here inside that tower, and I just slide it down. And as you're installing it, you're going to hear some snapping or some grabbing of the rubber on the coil. And you'll know once you've got it fully seated because you can actually feel it. There you go. Now you got your new boot installed on your coil. Now remember, if you're replacing the coil boots because you had oil in the tube and it was oil saturated, we need to make sure to fix the cause of that. So you may be removing the valve cover and replacing the spark plug tube seals. So don't forget. Otherwise, eventually this is going to break down again. It's going to get soft and you're going to have a misfire. So make sure you fix the cause of that concern. So hopefully after watching this video, you now know that coils are not a common failured item on a Chrysler 3.2 or 3.6. The boots are, however. So again, when you reach that 100,000 mile threshold for the main service, you've got your PCV valve, your spark plugs. Don't forget your coil boots. They're not very expensive and they're going to save you some time in case you got a problem that comes up in the future and you got to take the intake off again to replace them. So if you liked the video, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube. Don't forget you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you got any comments about what you saw in today's video, or maybe some topics for future videos, leave something in the comments below. Also, if you shop on Amazon, which everybody does, please click on the link at the beginning of the description. Make that your Amazon homepage, and anytime you buy anything whatsoever, you'll be helping to support this channel. Once again, everybody, thanks for always watching.